Welcome back to Empty Space in Between, episode 21, and we are once again back with another brilliant guest to add to our series of guests, Dr Ivo Siekmann. So obviously we know you as a lecturer, as a researcher, but how would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know you?
Well, I mean, as a lecturer, I am a researcher and a teacher. So I actually think it's great that I can do both. Basically translated to biology, this means as you vary one parameter, you might make the survival of the red squirrel unstable, which means in other words that extinction is stable then. I did a lot of different things. So you could say I did write 2 dissertations as an undergraduate because I could get a maths degree as well.
The fuck is this German system?
This is meant.
You can just write a dissertation.
I go to uni for free. You just give out degrees.
I've been listening to this lately. I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. In a bag I'm useless, but not for long, the future is coming on. I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine. In a bag I'm useless, but not for long, the future is coming on. It's coming on, it's coming on.
Welcome back to Empty Space in Between, episode 21. Firmly moving into the 20s now.
Yeah, we're getting old.
Yeah, we can now buy a beverage in the United States.
Yeah, if our podcast was a young adult, we would be legally bound to alcohol in the United States now.
We would be. We are of age. And we are once again back with another brilliant guest to add to our series of guests, Dr Ivo Siekmann.
Well, thank you.
It makes me laugh.
Nice to be here.
I say it makes me laugh that the only person we didn't cheer was Ian Malabar.
You didn't cheer for Ian? Oh, God.
I started it on Ian Jarmo, didn't I?
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
And yeah, poor Ian Malabar never got a celebration, so he's the only person on the podcast playlist who didn't get a celebration.
But he was the first, so he's got that over everyone else.
He was the first.
He was the first guest ever. Right?
He was the first guest ever.
So, Ivo, we and Sam, we know you from the LJMU Maths Department. Yeah. So we're raiding the Maths Department for guests. That is what we're doing. So obviously we know you as a lecturer, as a researcher, but how would you describe yourself to someone who doesn't know you?
That's really difficult.
The only person who doesn't know himself.
Yeah. Researcher, lecturer, what do you do?
What are you?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a lecturer, I am a researcher and a teacher. So I actually think it's great that I can do both. So when I was a pure researcher, in a way, after my PhD, I did miss teaching. So I think I would say from the kind of job, that's what I really want to do. So I want to do teaching and research.
Yeah. And now you're moving into both. As we start with all of our guests, we like to break the ice. I think you may have seen this on a few of the others. Because for those who don't know, Ivo was our first biggest fan.
Ivo,
yes. I subscribed first day.
He made sure to let us know.
Left likes, everything.
Yeah. So what we like to do when we have new guests on, we like to break the ice with a few highbrow questions.
To get to know the character we're interviewing, we're talking to a little bit more. And we always find out things about people that we never knew with these questions.
It is quite weird, isn't it?
It is quite weird.
So the first one is, what is your favourite sandwich?
Sandwich. Yeah.
We will judge you heavily if it's a hot sandwich.
So my favourite sandwich is based on bread that is probably very hard to get here. So in Germany we have bread. So I'm from Germany. In Germany we have...
Just getting that one out there.
Bread that is black. So as black as your T-shirt. So you might have seen something like this in the supermarket. So one type of bread, pumpernickel, might be salty as well. So it's bread that you can basically keep forever.
Wow.
But so it's black and
not moldy.
No. So the black is, I think, because there's First, there's starch in the flour, and then you bake it for so long that all the starch becomes sugar and then becomes kind of syrupy, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's sweet.
It's kind of sweetish, but not really. So pumpernickel is the extreme, and I like to have that with any kind of cheese. So it can be just like a cheddar, but it can also be a more aggressive blue cheese.
So like a
something
brie.
like that. Yeah, but also like Stilton or other blue cheeses I really like. Yeah, so
Is it firm, the bread? 'Cause
Yeah.
I went to Germany years ago. I went to Mannheim.
yes.
My brother was, when he was running, you went to follow them there, and they used to have bread there that was like hard.
Typically the crust is very hard, and then it depends on what kind of bread you have. Inside
nice.
it might be quite soft, but a lot of these dark breads have a lot of seeds.
Yeah, that's what it had in.
It basically goes on like that. So inside they are like a granola bar.
Felt like I was having my breakfast again when I was eating it.
So they are really like very heavy. So
Yeah.
you if you eat one slice, it's probably the equivalent of 3 slices of white bread.
Just dense, full of
And
everything.
I mean, the thing is, it's really hard to get outside of Germany. So I think in Eastern Europe, sometimes they have similar bread.
Yeah.
But I actually make my own bread now because it's really
You
hard
just
to get
can't get
bread
it
like
anywhere
this
else.
here. Yeah.
So the sandwich, so you've got the German, the black bread. You've
Yeah.
got cheese. Anything else on it, or just cheese?
No,
sandwich?
it's just butter or something
just
like
a
that,
cheese
and
sandwich?
Yeah, so the thing is, I would of course have something like salami or ham or whatever on other bread, but on that kind of bread, it's not that nice.
Cheese
So
as
it's just
well, though.
cheese. Yeah.
Cheese
A good
is
cheese.
fucking
Yeah.
dangerous, man, because it's so good and it's so fattening. Like, I could easily get a block of cheese
And
and
some
a
crackers.
loaf of bread and just slice bread, bite, eat that once, and just keep on going, man.
I'm the
It's
same
so
with crackers.
Good.
I could just get like water biscuits.
Oh, like thin,
Water biscuits.
yeah.
Get some nice cheese. I could just sit there and eat it all day. The
With a cracker,
heartburn.
though, you need something on it because it's
No,
dry.
nah, man.
You
But then I
choke
think
on that.
the best kind of bread, I mean, it's not really bread, but croissant. So you have
Very
a croissant
nice.
with
Ham and cheese
So you
or
have to
something.
put a lot of butter on it. I just do butter, but a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Buttery croissant.
Ham and cheese croissant's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melted cheese.
You know
got
what?
like the sweet croissants.
I tell you what, Ivo, that was one of the simplest sarnies we've had. But,
Yeah,
it sounds very nice.
But it's not low. The worst, I'm still saying, was Malabar.
Malabar's was terrible.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
like
it just had all sorts of nonsense on it.
it was just like cold chicken with cold white
But
bread.
I think that is like
with cold
I
peppers.
mean, you can do anything with pizza. You can do anything with a
Yeah.
wrap. So you just put anything
Oh,
you like
don't get me
in
wrong.
it.
It's very much subjective, but we're going to judge him for
Oh yeah,
it.
you can do anything you want. But we're gonna publish. I think we should go back and look at the
You
sarnies.
make the
And have
sandwich
leaderboard.
leaderboard.
Yeah, and publish a ranking
Yeah.
and say who will give the highest rank.
Like the old Top Gear speed thing.
Yeah,
just
well,
how, like,
we
you
should give it
slow
like
down.
stars.
But I think
Yeah.
I probably dodged the question then because it's not a classical sandwich. I think.
No, but it sounds...
It's not the best, but it's not the worst. We've
No,
had
Okay,
It-
yeah.
it's solid.
I'm happy with solid middle class.
Next question.
Yes.
You're feeling fancy. You're having a dinner party. Well,
Yeah.
3 people, dead or alive. Would you ask to be around your table?
Oh, why just 3?
Yeah, just
I mean, it would
3.
be good to
It
have.
can be
Yeah.
famous people. It can be people from your family. It
Yeah.
can be anything. We had Dr Anya McDermott invited her
Yeah.
deceased cat
Yes.
Yes.
called
I
Scrappy.
don't know. I would have invited the 12 Knights of the Round Table. I don't know, but yeah. So if I
Just
have
the best 3.
just 3. Yes, that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Then probably Janis Joplin.
Janis Joplin. Wow. Okay. Be full of drugs this dinner table.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. She did everything right. She just died a bit too young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was probably consistent as well.
Give me
so
a
I think
little
yeah.
piece of my heart, now, baby. Oh, it's a tune.
The best thing is Summertime.
Yeah, that's a
Summertime.
tune.
So
So Janis Joplin.
yeah. So then I have to think. Probably. I mean, yeah. I probably would like to have a writer. So yeah, I mean, there's a German writer I really like. He's dead ages ago, Thomas Mann. But yeah, I mean,
What did he write?
so he wrote, for example, I think probably the most famous thing he wrote. So there's also an old movie based on that is Death in Venice.
Okay.
So it's just very depressing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think his first major book was Buddenbrooks, so that's about a family.
Okay.
Yeah, so he wrote. He was probably maybe the first German who won the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so sometime 20s maybe, 1920s he won the
I wondered
prize.
if he'd get on with Janis Joplin.
That's the beauty of it, right? They would have a great time, I'm sure. Yeah, Thomas Mann and Janis Joplin.
You've got a musician from the 60s who's a hippie.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you've got a German writer.
He was probably relatively conservative.
Oh, right.
And to be honest, I think he was probably on a personal level not a very nice person.
Yeah.
So I think all his children were kind of intimidated by him. Some killed themselves,
okay.
so he was really not a very
Sounds like
nice
a great
person.
guy.
What
He
is this?
wrote great stuff. I mean,
Third person.
yeah, that's difficult. Then I have to think.
You got a musician, you got a writer,
Yeah. So
you got a hippie and a nutcase.
I mean, probably the question is who is more of a nutcase, Thomas Mann or Janis Joplin?
Context.
Depends on the
It's all
definition
about
of a
the context.
nutcase is.
Probably Merlin the Magician then, if I can't invite the whole round table. So
Merlin the Magician.
yeah.
To be fair, I invited you. What, did you not know the tales of the round
Yeah, so
table?
the advisor of King Arthur. So he was the most powerful. It's like a druid or magician.
Back in England?
In England, yeah. So I
he
mean,
was like a
it's
druid who worked
so-
for the...
Well, like a full-on like spellcaster and that.
Well.
He sounds like a sweet guy.
Does sound like a, yeah, he sounds like a cool dude.
He was the benevolent kind of magician, I think.
So what? You've got a.
So there's Morgana. So that's the.
She was the
Arthur's
devil,
sister.
wasn't she?
So actually, I think she would probably. I should invite rather her maybe.
Hold on, are these real people or are they mythical?
No. So that's probably if I'm not allowed to invite.
It's fine. He
fictional
invited
people.
Jesus. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
invited Jesus. So you can have him
But
if you
Jesus
want.
is a historical person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he existed.
Yeah, no.
But
yeah,
He,
true.
he just didn't run on water and do...
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He didn't part the fucking Red Sea. That's the only
That
difference.
wasn't Jesus anyway, that was Moses.
Oh, fucking Moses, all the same, man. It's the same book. It's the same nonsense.
Yeah.
So we've got just to round that up.
I would like
Janis
to be a
Joplin.
magician, to be honest.
You would.
Yeah,
It's never too late, Ivo.
You can try. Always learn.
I mean, I'm a bit skeptical. That's the problem. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure science and magic
Yeah.
go together.
I mean, it would be great if it was possible.
Yeah.
But then it's also very secretive. So,
Oh, the what's
Yeah.
it? The
so magicians generally they
Oh,
don't
what's it
give away
called,
their
that?
tricks. So that's why.
what's it called? The magician something?
Dynamo. Oh, like some type of like
Like a
like the way doctors sign the oath.
guild.
Like,
yeah,
that.
the magician. I can't remember. It's
not
like
to share secrets.
Yeah, basically.
Ah, wow.
It's part of something like that. I can't
It's all
remember.
just deception, isn't it? They just deceive you.
Yeah.
Like you think something's magic, and actually,
Like,
it's
they
just...
make you look over here. Why something's happening over here?
I was in. This is funny, actually. I went on holidays to Turkey a few weeks ago, and the guy I was getting a boat trip off said, "Do you want to see some magic?" They always try and
Yeah.
trying to upsell you. Yeah, go on. And then he got me to write a vegetable down, and then went asked me some questions, and then went, "It's a carrot, isn't it?" And I went, "No." I wrote asparagus down, and he went, "Oh." I went, "So what? It just didn't work." And he went, "Yeah, it didn't work." I went, "I don't get the mechanism there of what you were trying to deceive
So
me
he
with."
basically does it, and like
He just
every
writes
1
down
in 10.
carrot. He just says most people say carrot, so I write down carrot.
Yeah.
But
So
I
that's-
purposely chose asparagus because he
bit
wouldn't have
rose.
chose.
Yeah.
So if more than 50% of people say
You got a
carrot,
good
Oh,
chance.
it works
He's a
more
winner.
than 50% of the
Yeah.
time. So it's magic.
So he loses just under 50% of his boat trips,
Yeah.
basically. Because you go, that didn't work.
That's
I'll
a
go somewhere
terrible
else.
business model, but funny. So the last question,
Yes.
now breaking the ice, is what was the worst job you've ever had?
Yeah, I think probably the worst job was doing inventory in a shop.
Oh, just like
Okay.
mundane.
Yeah. No, I think it was... I wasn't very good at it. So I had to write stuff down in a book. And it had to be accurate. And it had to be legible. And my handwriting was one of the worst handwritings you can imagine. Still is. And I had a horrible pen. So it was really bad. And then I think they wanted to fire me after one day, and I said, okay, can I bring my own pen tomorrow? so I got to keep my job. Yeah.
How old was you?
Teenager. So it
How
was
long did you do that for?
I was just usually you could do that as a student, as a high school student, 1 day or 2 days. It wasn't for a few days. It was just the end of the year. All the shops. So it was a smaller shop. So I think the owner had something like for crafting stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like beads and cardboard and the beads, of course, you couldn't count them, so you had to weigh them and all those kinds of things. So you had to do something like 10.
Was this like a summer job or?
It was like a short-term summer job. Yeah. You could also do it in a supermarket, but I did that a few times, and it wasn't particularly bad. I think most jobs I did were all right, but
it was just the worst of the bunch.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
I've had some clangers on that question as well.
I've had some funny ones there.
Yeah.
Ian's was my favourite when
The Sainsbury's.
Yeah, he worked in Sainsbury's and he said he was only there for half a day. He said, and I was non-stop all morning. He said, and I was in the car park pushing trolleys. He said, and I was sweating. He said, and I took a rest and went... He said, and then as soon as I stopped, he said, some boss shouted, if you stand still any longer, you'll turn to fucking stone. He said, and I just went, I'm fucking going.
Not dealing with that.
Yeah, I can't be doing with this.
I mean, it was a bit like this when I worked in a hospital. So I did this instead of military service in Germany.
Did you have to
so
do
at that
military
time,
service?
I would have had to do military service, or I could object, and then you had to do something else.
Yeah.
And a typical job was working in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And they always, of course, had the idea that people who come straight from school, they are useless and lazy, and then you faster.
Yeah,
and,
like shouting and
I
that.
Is
always thought,
that
calm
still
down.
in play in Germany, military service?
No, I think they abolished this a few years later. Not that shortly afterwards, maybe 10, 15 years later.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah. I
so
mean, it was not
how
a
long
bad time.
did you...
I had to do this for a year.
Right.
And I mean, I knew then that I didn't want to do anything with medicine. So some people do this like a placement.
Yeah.
So they go to the hospital just to try it out. And I knew before that I wouldn't really want to do medicine. But I thought, it's interesting to see how it works in hospital. And I realized that hospitals were quite different than I imagined them. So I
Quite
thought
morbid.
that the doctors would just look at the patient and then know exactly what was wrong with them, and then say, okay, this is your treatment, and you are well again in a few days. And actually it was like, oh, we have no idea what this person has, so let's try this. Oh, it made it worse, so maybe that's not a good idea, so let's try something.
So you're telling us basically, don't get sick because doctors haven't got a clue what to do.
It's like a trial and error.
No, and it was just like less scientific as I would have
Less
thought.
noble than you thought.
Yeah, but I think it was probably, quite natural. I mean, you can't know everything.
Yeah.
So you just talk with the patients and they tell you something, and then you think, oh yeah, probably some of what they say is not even true. So something like, are you smoking? No.
How many pints? It's like when I go to the doctors. How many units do you have a week? How many's in a pint? 2. 10.
Yeah, no more. Well, I spoke what my auntie years ago was seeing a doctor, and like someone had something wrong with them in the family, and they weren't getting diagnosed with anything, and the tests keep coming back negative, nothing, no, all the cancer screens, everything, and it was this pain that was happening, and my auntie's fella, he just said, listen, if the answer is don't know, that's much better than getting told you've got stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
We just don't know. It's a problem. It could be mental. You could be imagining this, but I'd rather not know
Than be told you've got
you're dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
That's a worse feeling than being told, you fucked.
You're
No, you're not.
yeah.
No, you're not.
You are
Lol,
fucked.
always joking. Always joking. Oh, no, you are. Oh, no, I was always joking. And then imagine going through that cycle. That must be horrible, that.
But as he said, listen, sometimes we just don't know.
Sometimes we don't know.
That's the nature of the
And
game.
I tell you what we don't know is what Ivo was like back all those years ago, back in school. So what we like to do with our guests, like to take you back, especially with academia, understand kind of what was you like in school, what was your path into academia, because we always find that quite interesting, because the guests we spoke to in the past, there's been so many different avenues to get to academia, even though a lot of the kind of work once you get there is the same.
And Ivo's the second person who was schooled in a different country as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had Alec from South Africa, but you obviously didn't grow up here, so tell us what it was like.
Technically third.
Who's the third?
Anya.
Oh yeah, Anya.
No, technically fourth.
Oh, fuck off.
Tyler, Wales.
Oh, fuck off. That doesn't count. Fucking
Yeah, so
3 mile away.
yeah. So he's in North Wales. That's basically.
You went on a straight line to North Wales. You'd be there in about 4 miles.
So what was schooling like back in Germany? And more importantly, what were you like in school?
What was Ivo like?
I mean, I was always interested in a lot of stuff. So I was always interested in almost everything. So I liked music. I liked reading books. I liked. Sports I wasn't very good at, but I liked football.
But
you just like getting involved and playing.
I always played goalkeeper because that was the only position where I wasn't useless.
Yeah,
but
and I know that feeling.
I played every day, and I was all right as a goalkeeper. And so I did like science, especially. I mean, when I was young, I would always sit in the garden and look at ants. So I still think that ants are the best animals.
Fascinating.
Ants, yeah. So you can look at them, and then they go into the ant. What was it called? An ant?
Anthill.
Anthill, yeah.
Yeah.
But they weren't hilly ants. They were like just a dirty hole.
And you get those fascinating displays in like museums where they have like the rope.
Yes,
Going
and then they
to
go
two
over the
different,
rope.
and you see them carrying like bits of donuts or bits of, and it's just, and they have these like democracies
And
within
hierarchies within them that they all follow
yeah.
strictly. It's class. I do like it.
So yeah, sorry.
So I was basically interested in everything, but I mean in Germany at that time. I mean, it's probably still kind of similar as it was back then. So you have just 4 years of primary school. You just start a bit later. So you start at
4
age
years.
6. Yeah.
Wow.
But then you have obviously longer secondary school.
You don't start school till 6 in Germany.
Yeah, you only start at 6.
What age do you leave secondary school?
When you are around 19. So it's 13 years in total.
I think that's the same for us, but we obviously leave.
So we just
16.
have a longer secondary school, and we don't split between something like secondary school and sixth form. So it's just
right.
So you need to do 4 years of primary school, then you go to secondary school, and one of the things that are probably quite bad about the German system now is that we have a 3-tier school system. So you have something which is called a main school, and in the old days it was the school for most people.
Kind of like a comprehensive over here type thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, we have comprehensive schools as well now. But before we just had the main school, the so-called real school, and something which was called gymnasium. Okay. And so gymnasium was like a grammar school. And
right.
Probably when my grandparents went to school, probably even when my parents went to school, these grammar schools were like for just a few people, and not many people did the A-level equivalent. Now, I think most people go there, I would say.
So are the public schools like, or the private?
Yeah, so in Germany there are no private schools really.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
something like private schools, fee-paying schools is very rare in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just went to, I think my primary school, I went there because my grandmother lived opposite of it and could just go across the road. But at that time in Germany, school finished at about lunchtime. And I went to my grandmother. She gave my sister and me something to eat. And then my parents, who were both teachers, picked me up a bit later because they weren't in school for that long either. So it was maybe an hour more, but not really far into the afternoon. And then, I did go from that school to a secondary school, stayed there until year 10, I think. And then year 11 to 13, you have to choose the same thing as your A-level subjects. You just have a lot of subjects
fine.
So you
still.
kind of like refine it down
Yeah,
as you get
but
up.
you still have most subjects.
And you still take exams then at the end of year 11?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have exams all the time. For your final 3 years of school, you get higher weightings for your main subjects.
Right.
And yeah, I wanted to have German and mathematics, and that was hard to combine because most people wouldn't take both.
Together,
so they would
yeah.
say either German or mathematics, and then German with another language, or German with whatever, and German with history or something like that.
Yeah.
And mathematics with physics. But it was very hard to get that. So I went to another school, and that was an interesting school because it was the oldest school in my hometown. So like with a medieval library. And I was, actually, it was considered a really posh school. But I only lasted there half a year because I didn't really get along with the people. So there were some people who I had known from primary school, and I would have gone there, would have liked to go there. But that was not the closest school to my home.
Right.
So that's why I didn't go there. But then in the end, I ended up going there. But after half a year, I didn't get these two subjects anywhere. And I said, just leave. And then the third school was really good. And
Smashing.
yeah.
But it's also, that's mad. So in Germany, though, it's all school. There's no, like, separation. So, like, you went to a college after school, he left and went to do sixth form in a college.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
there is
you can leave after year 10 from any school. So, I mean, today it's really, I would say, not working anymore, because this main school is now often just the school for everyone who didn't make it. So no one wants to go there. So in the old days, that was in a way the school where you went if you wanted to do something like you wanted to become a craftsman or something, where you didn't need to be very academic.
Like a vocational.
But it was not a stupid school or something like that. It was just a school where you could leave after year 10.
For more practical
Yeah,
skills.
or even after year 9. And then now what most people do is, even if they graduate at that school, they try to do either the degree that they would get from the so-called real school, which was the traditional school for jobs like bankers.
Yeah.
Or they go directly into a gymnasium, so like a grammar school, where they then do the equivalent of A-levels. And that's, in Germany, actually your A-level marks don't really count. You just get anything, you pass, and then you can go to any university. The universities are not selective.
That's
so
wild.
you just say, I want this subject, and they don't really look at your marks. They just say, okay, you go there. You just have ranking.
Save me so much fucking pain.
So it's not
is it free?
Stressful. Yeah, the universities are free. We fought, actually following the example of England. In Germany, I know that because I when I was a student, I played in the university orchestra, and next to me there was an exchange student from England, and she said, we have introduced fees, and initially they were really low, but now they are getting higher.
Yeah.
And I said, they're trying the same thing here, and we actually try to avoid that, following the same argument. And I think the German students at that time, they didn't protest about much, but about that,
that's what they went to war for.
And I think another thing that rescued us from getting fees was that in Germany we have federal states, and they could compete with each other because the universities are run by the federal states. So some federal states said, well, I mean, if our neighboring state takes fees and we don't,
we'll get everyone.
That might actually increase our student numbers. And
so they wanted more students. So your university life, your school and university life, which we'll get into, was free.
Yes. So I paid something like a fee.
I owe like £100,000.
I paid a fee. No, not like that. I mean, I paid a fee, but some of the fee in Germany, you get a train ticket, so you can you can take the regional trains and go whatever 50 kilometers from your university town. And from my university, the most attractive destinations were a city in the north, Bremen. So that was slightly bigger than where I studied. Or you could go to the Dutch border and then buy a
Your
cheap
bus
train
ticket or
ticket to
something,
go to
yeah.
Amsterdam. So
And have a laugh.
Oh, so as part of the fee you paid, you just got a train ticket that you could just use as part of your
you
thing.
get a train ticket. You get normally in German universities you have a really heavily discounted canteen. So the food depends on the university, but our university they always won the prizes for the best canteen. So the food is really good. So for example, in October they would have the Oktoberfest week. So you would get beer and pretzels and these, I don't know if you know that, these pork Schweinshaxe, so
I think so.
pork legs.
Yeah.
So,
We've been going the wrong place here.
And then, so you're telling me there's a load of German students who end up going to university on the Dutch border, so that on the weekend they just get a train
They go
into
to
the dam
Amsterdam, yeah.
to go and get stoned. And they come back for lectures on Monday.
we were not so close to the Dutch border.
Yeah.
So you probably would have to import and yeah.
So what university did you study, and what did you study at university? I'm guessing maths or something.
So I studied in a small town called Osnabrück. Osnabrück is, you could say, Osnabrück and Münster, they are famous for being the places where the parties of the 30 Years' War, they signed the peace treaty.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think
Right.
the Catholics signed in Münster and the Protestants signed in Osnabrück, so that they probably didn't start all
Yeah.
Start a war while
All
signing.
that effort to get peace, and then they see each other, and it's like, fuck yeah.
But
I'm not
Osnabrück
signing nothing. Like that with the paper.
Yeah.
But Osnabrück is a really nice small town, and the strange thing was I didn't really come from an exciting town, but Osnabrück was so it got more and more rural next to Osnabrück, and all the people who came to Osnabrück thought of Osnabrück as the metropolis. So they thought, whoa,
Yeah, like
it
a
was
big
something like
city.
200,000 people at most.
Yeah.
It's quite small.
Yeah,
really.
yeah, it was quite small. So Osnabrück, really nice historical city center. And when you went to the center, you would always meet someone you knew. So
Yeah.
nice small town. I really liked studying there. So I did everything there. I did my degree and my PhD. So I spent there, I think, around 10 years.
Wow.
So what did you do your PhD in?
What was your degree in?
Oh yeah,
My
what was your
degree-
degree in? Yeah?
So I did something which was called applied system science.
Yeah, I
So
remember you
that's-
telling me that. Just to,
Yeah.
I already know some of this because Ivo supervised me
Yeah.
in me undergrad and masters.
Yeah.
That was it, yeah. So yeah, but Ryan doesn't.
I do not know this. This is fresh information.
Yeah, so applied system science was, in a way, a combination of mathematics, computer science, and you could take all kinds of options that you wanted. So you could take 2 options and really everything you wanted, more or less. And that's why I liked it. So it was hard to kind of find, so you had to know about it. I think I went to a job center and said, I don't really know what to do. Help me. And they said, yeah, you could do this. So I think they said, you could become a technical writer. And I said, okay, so that's like, so I didn't know what it was. And then they explained a bit what it was. And then I said, so that's basically writing manuals, right? I said, yes. I said, oh no, I'm not interested. Do you have anything better?
Yeah.
And they said, okay, yeah.
Right.
Like a hopeless
you, you forget someone's out there.
Got a
living
right
that
to
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they said, okay, there's this study program called Applied System Science. I said, oh yeah, sounds good. And it sounds even better in German, so angewandte Systemwissenschaften. So
Wow.
Let's see,
long
that
word.
does sound infinitely
So
better in German. Yeah.
It wasn't something that you were like, you knew you wanted to do from a young age. You just sort of
No.
didn't know what to do at 19.
So
you were like,
I
what do we do?
actually I would say, I was, without really knowing what it was, I was interested in mathematical modeling. So I was kind of probably my favorite science subject in the end at school ended up being physics, although I was more interested in biological things.
Yeah.
But I think I actually didn't even do biology in the end anymore. So when I could choose subjects, I chose physics and not biology, and I think not chemistry either. And yeah, when I had this study program and started choosing my options, I chose physics and psychology just because you could. So, I mean, you could really do anything. You could choose psychology, sociology.
This sounds like such a better system. Like you were able to pick just many things. Whereas
I think that was a particular program. I think the way it worked was that you got mathematics from the mathematics department. So we actually had to do the super pure mathematics classes with the mathematics students.
Yeah.
We had to do the computer science classes from the computer scientists. Applied system science was our own lecturers, but they were mostly interested in environmental problems. So the idea was that most environmental problems are complex, so there are many factors that play a role. And that's why you need to consider not just one cause-effect relationship, but you need to look at a bigger picture. And that's why they said, okay, we need to educate students that can do that. So they have, first of all, knowledge of more than just one discipline, or at least know how to talk with people from other disciplines. And then they learn methods, how you can solve problems that are kind of appropriate to the question. So we didn't learn just mathematical methods, but also computer simulation methods.
Because in order to understand like a biological system, you need to have some maths knowledge, you need to know how to do computer science, you need to know how to, obviously, the biology side of it in the system.
I mean, you can think, for example, about you have a river and you want to know what you have to do when the river is really polluted. So if the people who live upstream pollute the river, they don't really have any problems with that, but the people downstream have problems with that. So when you now think of this problem, you have right away the purely, you could say, chemical side. So you throw toxic stuff in a river and you want to know how much goes where. So that's something you can model separately. But then you also have a completely sociological side. So the people downstream... No, I mean, the people downstream, they kind of have to agree with the people upstream that they can't just do that because they... I mean, it's the same with other problems as well. When you look at climate change, the people who cause climate change are not necessarily the people who are hardest hit by it. Yeah. So if you want to solve a problem like this, you kind of have to find a way so that these people negotiate how this problem is solved fairly. And that is, of course, a sociological problem. So you would... if you wanted to model that, you would have to use completely different methods. So you could use, for example, a model where you simulate individual agents and they follow rules, and then you could see what happens if this party does that, and how much trust do they need to have, and
how do you model trust?
Well, I mean, a model that would not necessarily include trust, but a traditional model that probably you might have seen when you studied is game theory.
Yeah.
So game theory is not really about trust, but it's about
maximizing your own output.
So you don't necessarily... Yeah, so I think the advantage of game theory is that the results you get would even be valid if people actually distrust each other.
Yeah.
And they only say, okay, I don't really care about your benefit, but I want to know how I maximize my whatever payoff, whatever you formalize with that in this situation. But yeah, I mean, you can do something that is a lot more sophisticated if you don't set up such a simple model. You can just say, okay, we have agents that follow rules, and the rules describe maybe something like trust. So for example, if you start playing a game with someone, so you would set up a bit like a game, you can decide initially not to try to screw over the other party, but do something that is maybe giving them the option to get something out for them, and then in the end you might end up with a result that is better for both parties. And that is a bit harder to do if you follow something like a traditional game theoretic approach, because it's harder to model.
You just made me think of, you talk about game theory and like, having, you worry about your own, outcome, and hopefully it might be beneficial to both parties. There was an episode of, remember Deal or No Deal?
No, I know what you're
Deal or
thinking
No
of.
Deal? Golden Balls.
Lad, what an
Have you
episode.
seen that, Ivo? So
No.
Go on, Ryan, you go tell them.
So the way it kind of works is like it's a game show. You build up money, or like through questions and opening these
I
different
think
things.
I know probably the game show, but so
And then the idea at the end is there's 2 contestants left with a pot of money, and then there's 2 balls you can pick. So it's the prisoner's. Is it the prisoner's dilemma?
Yeah.
So you can either choose split or steal.
Yeah.
So if both people choose split, the money gets split, obviously.
Yeah.
If one person chooses steal, the other chooses split, then the one who chose steal gets all the money. But if you both choose steal, no one gets the money.
For everybody.
But then there was this particular episode where I think this one you're on about, where the fella just goes, "I'm gonna steal all the money. So if you choose split, that means I'll get the money and I'll split with you after." And then the guy was like, "Well, I've got no other choice."
It's so funny. He goes, "You're a fucking idiot." He goes, "You're an absolute idiot."
And then at the end, when they reveal, the fella who said I was going to steal chose split.
Yes.
So he fought, basically, because he told him and convinced him in his mind, he'd forced him to go down one avenue, like, this is your only
Pushed
option.
him down a path, didn't he?
He was like, I can choose split.
I think this is even clever at 2 levels, I think, because I think, you can trust him in the end that they share afterwards. But I think if they in the end made sure that it was actually...
But that's what I mean. If he
decided
did
before,
steal, he basically minimised the risk of him losing, basically. Like, but it just made me think of it then when you were talking about, like...
It's a brilliant episode, that.
Lad, it's so good.
good
I'm
to
not even
watch.
sure whether that is exactly what you meant when you were talking about game theory. or-
So-
No, that is exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
So is this the type of stuff you did for your PhD then?
No.
Or did you kind of deviate from that when you went over there?
No, I think I did. I mean, I did a lot of different things. So you could say I did write 2 dissertations as an undergraduate because I could get a maths degree as well. And in my applied
What the fuck
system
is this
science,
German system?
This is meant.
You can just
give
write
it out
a
to-
dissertation.
You go to uni for free. You just give out degrees.
So the thing is, we had so much maths in our program that you could basically say, okay, I do a bit more, and then I get the maths degree as well.
That's so good.
Yeah.
It's so
That's
sick.
like us saying we've done a lot of computer science, a
I
lot
think
of
We
coding.
did a lot of coding, so I'll get
If we do a computer
I
science
think it's a bit less
dissertation.
flexible here. So the traditional German system was you don't really have a fixed program. So you have something like, okay, the first 2 years for my program were predetermined, but we had 5 years. And the last 3 years were pick and choose whatever you like, unless it fulfills certain criteria. So you couldn't take just pure maths, you couldn't take just applied maths. But if you had the right amount of everything, it was fine.
Yeah.
And with applied system science, it was a bit like that. So you had fixed things that you could do in applied system science, but maths and computer science was completely flexible. Yeah, so in my applied system science dissertation, I worked with a psychologist, and I worked on a model of differences in personality. So that was really interesting.
Oh, wow.
I really liked that. I would have wanted initially
sounds
to do a
awesome.
Does
PhD
sound
in that
very interesting,
area,
that.
but it was hard to get funding for that. So I did that together with my advisor from system science and this psychologist. But in the end, I wouldn't have been able to get funding for that. So I did mathematics, and basically I had to do a few more maths courses, and I had to write a dissertation.
Yeah.
And in mathematics, I was really interested in more of the pure and strange stuff.
Yeah.
And I did something that was kind of pure, but then also applied. So I worked on cryptography, which was basically number theory. And
that's really
it
cool.
was called elliptic curve cryptography, and it was cool because you had these curves and you could define in a geometric way how you add 2 points to get a third point, and you could use that to set up a coding system. And I really, when I heard about this, I said, oh yeah, I really want to do that. So I I got a lecturer to advise me in that area, and then I started working on this, and I worked, and I said, oh. So the disappointing thing about this was that this was a very well-known area. So I just couldn't really do anything on my own. It was a bit like, I told him in the end, my advisor, I have worked on this all the time, but I basically feel as if I have translated a book from English into German. He said, okay, but it was really hard to do anything else. And but in the end, both.
But that was a part of your PhD, was it?
No, so that was before my PhD.
Oh, okay.
So basically, I did my studying in applied system science, and then I have to say I was not very clever about looking for a job. So I had the idea that I just concentrate on my dissertation, and then afterwards I will look for a job. And I basically postponed this for too long. So when I was done with my dissertation, I started looking for jobs, and then I got stressed because I thought, okay, now I will be waiting for a job for a long time potentially. So that was not a very clever idea. And at the same time, I did still my maths degree because I had to finish a few things and write up my dissertation. But then, it took about half a year, and then I could do a PhD, which was basically what I wanted to do most.
Yeah.
So there was one job in an insurance company that I turned down because I thought, if I do that, I will
cry.
Get bored. Yeah. So I really thought, okay, I will accept this if I don't have anything a few months later, but now I really hope that I...
Gotta wait it out.
Yeah. And then one of my lecturers in applied system science had a PhD position, and I was so glad that there was some opportunity to do something else. And I applied for that job, and I wasn't really sure if I would get it. But then I got the job, and I worked on ecology. So he was always, and I couldn't really understand that. I basically didn't understand why my PhD advisor was so excited about plankton until I finished my PhD. So my PhD advisor, Horst Malchow, he was a theoretical physicist, and he had worked on all kinds of physics topics, so mostly in statistical physics. And then when he became a more experienced scientist, he decided, okay, I'll do something that is in ecology. And I think others in his area had done something around evolution, but he had, for some reason, discovered plankton. And when I had this interview, he said, as you can imagine, your PhD will be about my slimy green friends. I said, okay.
So your PhD was on plankton?
It's plankton, yeah.
Like
it was even better. It was
plankton.
On sick plankton. So I didn't really know that plankton could get sick until then.
Yeah, I just thought you just had plankton.
This all makes so much sense, because when I did my masters and my undergrad projects with Ivo, I used to think, where the fuck does he get these topics from? I was doing the squirrel problem. There was another student, I forgot her name, doing plankton.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, where's he pulled
plankton from?
Where's that come from? But makes sense.
I think the squirrel problem is, of course, my English topic. So because of the red and the grey squirrels. So that was something that was my favorite model when I was a PhD student, because it was nice and simple.
Yeah.
And
I really enjoyed that project. Yeah, it was really good.
I mean, the squirrel model was my absolute favorite.
But it just all makes sense, and I was like,
topics. I bet you were sat there just thinking there, what, 19-year-old Sam, fucking plankton.
But the squirrel one made a bit more sense because it was UK based,
I mean.
but there was another student doing plankton. And I was thinking, and they used to show, like, sometimes I go to meetings with Ivo, and he'd be like, oh yeah, here's what, or he might have something up, and he'd go, oh, look at how cool this is. And he had like, and it was like a heat map or something.
Yeah, no,
showing
I
where
think
the plankton was. Or
so Danielle.
It was Danielle,
So Danielle, Danielle James did her dissertation on a model where the plankton could release a toxin to defend itself. And I think in that model there was a predator that ate so you typically in these models you have phytoplankton that's like small algae. They breathe carbon dioxide and they use photosynthesis and make oxygen as a byproduct. So then zooplankton, which is like small crab-like animals that...
So you say crap?
Crab.
Yeah, I thought they're shit then.
So I think
crap animals.
Yeah, fuck them. You don't want to research them. They're nonsense.
These shite animals.
So they're really tiny. You see them under a magnifying glass, and you can see them kind of. If you look at a glass of water, you can see them, but they are small, and they eat the phytoplankton, and they are the fish food. So I think the first real motivation to study plankton was because of fisheries. So they said, okay, why can I catch a lot of fish here, but not there? And the question was, okay, why do the fish go here and they don't like to go there? And I think, basically, I would say the fundamental question in plankton is, why, if you assume that the ocean is not really that heterogeneous, so most of the conditions are not super different if you go in different areas. How does it come that in some areas you have a lot of phytoplankton, a lot of zooplankton, a lot of fish, and in other areas that
it's
are
quite barren.
Exactly the same, you don't have anything. And I mean, you can use mathematical models to explain that this can even just
but surely
happen.
There must be some difference, though, if that's why.
Well, you might think, but I mean, the models tell you
random?
that it's just because of the not random. It's just because of the way that these species interact.
Okay.
It's just that they generate these spatial heterogeneities by themselves in a way. It's a bit hard to understand, but it's
so
purely
because of the way they all interact, they all force themselves into little areas instead of being consistently spread type thing. Is that
I mean,
what you're saying?
they basically can generate these patterns without having different conditions, and that's then mainly just, for example, because of the geometry of the system. So if you have an area that is then wide, you have maybe stripes. So you have one area where you have a lot of
plankton, fish,
nothing, and it's just that it alternates. It's not that you definitely have a difference between these areas.
That's how the pattern.
Yeah, it's just how the system.
So what was
works.
then, Ivo? You worked with plankton doing ecological models on them. What was the exact like problem that you were specifically solving when you were a PhD student?
As I said, sick plankton. So they had discovered in the 90s that there were a lot of viruses in the sea that no one really knew about, and they so the oceanographers, they said, okay, we haven't really taken this into account. We know about plankton, we know about the phytoplankton and the zooplankton, and the zooplankton eats phytoplankton, but we assume that the viruses kill the phytoplankton as well. And I mean, there are other diseases for the zooplankton as well. So my job was to look at the phytoplankton infection and see what the effect was. And I think, I mean, the main thing that is in hindsight kind of obvious that you can see is that when you have a disease and a predator and they live in a way on the same resource, they kind of usually compete.
Yeah.
So when you have phytoplankton that can be infected by a disease and it is at the same time consumed by a predator, the zooplankton, what happens is that if the zooplankton is really strong, it might eat so much phytoplankton that the disease can't spread anymore. So the disease goes extinct. The other possibility is that the phytoplankton infection is so strong that the predator doesn't have anything to eat, and then the predator goes extinct. And it's actually in these mathematical models, not so much in reality apparently, but in mathematical models, it's really hard to make several species coexist.
Yeah, I
So,
remember, yeah.
and I mean,
Modeling the squirrels
the
and
theory always is that from an evolutionary point
Eventually,
of view,
one of them disappears.
that's what you think. But I think I'm not sure if I really believe that. I think it might be possible if there are. I mean, there are mechanisms.
Yeah, like if you have an overpopulate, like say if you reintroduce certain things into certain areas, then you get an overpopulation. It can cause one on the other. But when you see in natural ecosystems, obviously that doesn't happen because things coexist all the time.
But what's my talking back to like the squirrel stuff now. I'm fucking machine learning off. I'm going back to this, Ivo. I'm going back to ecology. It's the best topic. It's biology, man. Is so interesting. I remember coming to you as an undergrad because I got into like predator prey modeling because I was into reptiles. And I was so obsessed with like the Everglades and this invasive species, and I was like, I want to model the Everglades. And then I come to Ivo and he was like, well, there's actually a problem in the UK that I know more about, very similar with squirrels. And I was like, let's do that then. But it's so like when you're talking about like the like a population, I remember like, if I can re-jog my memory now correctly, like the grey squirrels obviously carry the virus. It's a bit different. They actually carry the virus in that case, don't they? And they used to compete with the reds for resources and all stuff like that. But like I'm trying to get back on my head straight now. So if you had a grey population which was too big, basically
The reds would all go.
the reds would go. But if the infection, I'm trying to explain it. I'm trying to think of my thesis now. It was gone.
You've slept a
I
lot
think
since then.
in
Slept a
your
lot.
thesis, I think your model was set up so that the grey squirrel basically had two advantages at the same time. So I think
At the competitive advantage. And
so one assumption is, and I'm not sure actually what, I think most people now would probably say that the primary explanation that the grey squirrels managed to take over is that the grey squirrel has an infectious disease that is not affecting them that much.
That was it,
but
yeah.
it is really bad for the red squirrel.
Yeah.
And the problem is that when this disease is transmitted, it doesn't harm the grey squirrels that much.
Yeah.
So maybe a few die, but not many. Whereas the red squirrels,
It just
they die.
decimates the population.
And the other thing is that one also assumes that the grey squirrel might be the better competitor, but that lumps together several advantages.
Sorry, I know what I was going to say now.
Yeah.
I remember. So if you have a large red population, it can compete well. Imagine the greys had no virus. It can compete well against the grey population. Tell me if I'm wrong. But the greys carry the infection. So the larger the red population, the easier it is for the infection now to spread.
Yeah.
There's like a catch-22 for the red squirrels, right? Like the bigger they are, the stronger they are against the greys.
Yeah.
But the bigger they are, the more
to catch the
susceptible they are to the infection.
And then the
So it
infection
was
will
like-
spread quicker among the
and then
bigger
it'll kill them
population.
quicker, and then the greys can
Yeah.
compete much, and the greys are already better competitors anyway,
Oh.
so they don't need as big as a population, I suppose, to outcompete. That was it. Sorry, I had to get it in my head
It's
straight
so
then.
I do find this type of stuff interesting. Like when I did I did like applied linear algebra, like teaching, and one of that was, is it Leslie matrices?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like modelling those type of relationships with Leslie matrices, and I found that quite interesting. I just learning that.
Sorry, I'm going down the red squirrel hole again now, but this is a podcast, is what we do. I remember thinking, Ivo, and I remember I mentioned it in my dissertation, there must be thresholds. So I was thinking, surely you can have, because like the whole, like, ecologists were arguing, like, you know, we need more red squirrels in these areas where, like, Scotland still has them. So if there's bigger populations, they're stronger. But obviously, the bigger the population, it can be a double-ended sword where once the infection's in, they'll dwindle quicker because there's that many of them. So I was thinking, surely there's got to be a correct population size for the reds where they're competitively sufficient, but they're not so large as to where an infection would completely eradicate them. That might be just hypothetical nonsense.
Well, I can say that there are... So what I find interesting from a mathematical point of view is that when you look at the models and not at the biology, so the way you analyze these models is exactly finding these thresholds. So you look at the parameters and you vary them, and then you see how, as you say, the stability of different solutions changes. And basically translated to biology, this means as you vary one parameter, you might make the survival of the red squirrel unstable, which means, in other words, that extinction is stable then.
Yeah.
And then you know how the parameter influences the survival of the red squirrel. And that might tell you, by analyzing this, how you can maybe steer the system in a direction that is more what you want. And I think the mathematical area would be dynamical systems, bifurcation theory. So it's all about finding where these thresholds are. And I think, that is also something that is often now even used in public debate about climate change. So where is the tipping point?
Yeah.
So in a mathematical model, that just means if this parameter is above this threshold, then there's nothing you can do anymore. This other solution is stable.
The extinction is the stable result.
You go there inevitably. And the only thing that you can then do is actually see if there's a way to maybe go back or compensate for that. And even that might, in a mathematical model, not be possible anymore. So it can be that the tipping point really is, in a way, doomsday.
Yeah. No, it's
but then mathematical models are one thing,
and reality
the
is sometimes
real
different.
world is.
But that's always the
thing.
challenge, isn't it? Is making mathematical models that can mirror reality. So then, PhD done, Germany. We're finished. We are now Doctor on plankton. We are now Dr Ivo Siekmann. So did you stay in Germany for a while, or did you come straight to the UK, or did you travel around the globe for a bit? What was the path around there?
What happened was, I told you that after my first degree, I thought, I really messed this up. I looked for a job so long that I got really stressed. I mean, I'm naturally not a very relaxed person when it comes to looking for jobs, so I always thought, oh no, this took way too long. So what I did in the final phase of my PhD, I thought, okay, I will now apply for all the postdocs that I might find interesting. And my contract, I think, ended March of the year after. And I said, okay, until January, I will apply for postdocs. And after January, I will apply for more and more jobs, and in the end, any job in the world. And
in the end, I'll just cry.
So at first I thought, okay, let's have a look. Maybe a postdoc somewhere in Germany. I knew that I probably couldn't stay in the city where I had studied for 10 years. So in Germany there was something. I actually thought that I could also change fields. So I thought at that time it might not be as easy to find a job in ecology. And I also thought it might be interesting to learn something else. So I was interested in finding something that was more related to medicine, systems biology. And I looked a bit into that. So I applied, for example, for a job or a scholarship at a cancer research center in Germany, and I applied in the UK. That was, I think immune biology or something like that, immunology. But then my PhD advisor had been on a sabbatical and always sent me messages from New Zealand and said, "Oh, there's a postdoc here, you should really apply." And I thought, okay, yeah, I can apply. It's not really my area, but again, it was something like systems biology. So I decided to apply, and then he emailed me back. So Horst emailed me back after a while. I said, "Good news! I will give a talk at the university where you have applied, and they have said that they want to have a recommendation, so I can basically give my reference in person." So he came to Auckland, gave his presentation, chatted with the person who had invited him, and then it turned out that I had an interview.
In Auckland, you had to get to Auckland?
Yeah, so at that time, the internet already existed, but the internet going out and into New Zealand was still
terrible.
Just one cable. So that meant the interview was on Skype, but without camera. And that was quite good. So I was super nervous.
You were like that at the camera, basically.
And it had to be sometime in the evening. So that was basically only one possibility. So relatively, not really late. So it's something like 8 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in New Zealand or something like that. Yeah. And I was so stressed that I thought, okay, good thing that I don't have to switch on a camera. So I'll make myself really comfortable. So I put on my pajamas,
naked,
take a dressing gown, and then I have the interview like that. And that actually worked. So I did my interview, and in the end I got the job.
So you got the postdoc in New Zealand?
Yeah.
That's sick.
Did you not know that?
No, I kind of knew you. I knew you was like down Oceania way, but I didn't know it was New Zealand.
Yeah.
Oceania, a humongous place down that way.
Yeah, down those ends. Yeah. So how long did you spend over in New Zealand?
So in the end, I mean, the contract was initially 3 years, and so Tamara, my wife, and I, we just thought, okay, yeah, we go there for 3 years, and then we simply go back, and it did really work that way. So we came there, and it was really nice. But after 3 years, the question was, what will we do then? So she had a job that she liked, and I liked my work as well. And then, so the bosses that I had there, they said, if you want, you can extend your contract until the end of the project. So that's basically up to 2 more years. And I always said, oh yeah, we should really think about this, because my wife and I, we always thought at some point we want to go back because it's really far away.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the end, I said, okay, I mean, I actually don't have any reason not to extend it. And then I stayed a bit longer, and so got to the end of...
So you must have liked it over there then? You must have liked
I really liked it over there.
Yeah.
So I think New Zealand is...
good quality of living, good standard of living, type of thing, yeah.
So it's... I mean, everything is a bit smaller. So the thing is, when you look at Auckland is the biggest city. And in New Zealand, it is very common that people who don't live in Auckland or who haven't been to Auckland, they usually say, oh, Auckland, I don't like Auckland, it's so big there. But it's just, I mean, it's 1 million people and spread over a huge area, so it doesn't feel that big.
So compared to like London, where it's like 11 million.
Yeah. 11 million people stood on top of each other.
All on the London Bridge.
But they say things like, oh yeah, you live in Auckland, you must be so stressed all the time. And I thought, yeah, no, not really.
No one fucking here.
I mean, I lived in even smaller cities before. I mean, I grew up in a city that was maybe 300,000, and I studied in Osnabrück, 200,000 people. Auckland, 1 million. Of course, it's bigger, but it didn't feel overwhelming.
Because it was obviously because it was so spread out. It was so it didn't feel as.
And I mean,
packed.
Auckland itself is really like a big city. But if you get only, 20 minutes out of Auckland, it's just ridiculously beautiful. So it's rural.
Lord of the Rings was filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah, super. Yeah, I mean,
you can see why when you see some of the pictures.
So the reason they could do Lord of the Rings there is that they have all kinds of different landscapes just in one country and not very far away from each other.
Makes sense.
So it's really nice.
Cost effective.
Yeah.
So what was your route then to John Moores then from New Zealand?
I did do another postdoc. I did postdoc for a long time. So I did postdoc for, in total, probably 7-8 years. So very long. And what happened was that when I was getting towards the end of my postdoc in New Zealand, I had two bosses. One was James Sneed and the other one was Edmund Crampin. And Edmund Crampin got a professorship in Melbourne in Australia. And he asked me, do you want to go there? And again, I talked with Tamara, my wife, and in the end, we weren't sure in the beginning. But the thing was, again, it was the choice between having two nice jobs and getting to see Australia, because we actually didn't manage to go to Australia while we were in New Zealand. We did a lot of tourism in New Zealand.
Quite far away though, isn't it? It's not like it's
3 hours, about 3 hours when you go from Auckland to Melbourne.
Okay.
So it's not
bad.
Yeah, it's not really bad. But we had a lot to see in New Zealand anyway. We might have done this on the way back, but yeah, we hadn't seen Australia, and she had a job that she could take with her to Melbourne because her company had an office there as well.
Oh, okay.
I would have a job, so we thought, okay, actually it's kind of stupid not to do that, because when we go back to Europe, we might not have a job at all.
And also the opportunity to go back as well and experience it for such a long time.
Yeah, so it was really then the best option to go to Australia. And yeah, I mean, Melbourne is really good as well.
So you were at the University of Melbourne, was you?
Yeah, I was at the University of Melbourne. So the University of Melbourne is, if you look at it, it's maybe a bit, it looks a bit similar as the University of Liverpool.
Okay.
Not quite, but it's a big campus. It looks kind of, so the University of Melbourne looks more Hogwarts-like. So I think they have made it
like
a really
the red brick
old-fashioned style. But more, I would say even more old-fashioned than the University of Liverpool. So I think might have been built in a similar time, but meant to be even older looking, so like medieval.
Yeah.
So
probably only built like 10 years ago.
No. It's
built on plywood.
It is a bit older, but yeah, it's not nearly as old as it looks like. Yeah. Yeah.
So did you go from Melbourne to the UK or back to Germany?
I went back to Germany for a short time. I spent about a year in a small city in North Germany, Göttingen. Göttingen is interesting because, I didn't do any pure mathematics for my whole life, but I think in Göttingen, that's the place where all the famous German mathematicians worked. So like Gauss, Hilbert.
How come?
It was basically a university that was founded in the 19th century, so it was not a traditional German university, but in that time, the Duke or whoever was responsible for Göttingen, I actually don't know. It was some kind of a Duke, a count or whatever, and he decided, okay, we need a good university. So he put a lot of funding in there and said, okay, I will build this university in the right way. And he apparently recruited really good people.
Pulled all
the best minds.
Until the Second World War, I would say, the very best mathematicians and physicists all went to Göttingen. And it's a small town. I mean, it's, again, like Osnabrück, it's a very small, even smaller than Osnabrück. It's a beautiful small town where, it's really nice to live there. And even today, I would say, it's not like the world-class mathematics is still in Göttingen, but it's a good university. They have several Max Planck institutes and it's a very nice place to work.
So did you go then from there to Liverpool?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, actually, I have to say, being a postdoc over several years, in the beginning, it's great because you basically
got your freedom,
do research only. You are probably a bit more flexible than a PhD student, although, of course, you have to work on your project.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a balance. So you have to make sure that your supervisor doesn't think that you are doing all kinds of other things, but you have more freedom.
Because there's no one directly
you work
over you.
Well, you get, of course, supervision, but it's not. Probably even as a PhD student, as you progress, it's not like your supervisor tells you every week what to do, but it's more like you kind of know what you do, and you just get general directions. It's probably more like that as a postdoc.
Even looser.
In the end, it's more like what have you been doing all this time? It looks kind of good. Yeah, let's write a paper about this. But I think when you do your postdoc, it becomes more and more stressful because if you don't have a permanent job, you always have to find a new postdoc.
Always looking for the next source of money, funding.
I mean, I was really lucky because the jobs that I initially had were in New Zealand and Australia, and they offer relatively long-term contracts. So my contracts were both 3 years. Yeah. But I think typical postdocs are often just 1 or 2 years. Yeah. And when I was in Germany, I came with a scholarship for scientists returning from overseas. Yeah. And that was just a really small scholarship for 6 months, just to get, in a way, into a new group.
To get settled
and
in somewhere.
My boss there, Axel Munk, is a really great statistician who works on many, many interesting things, including ion channels, which is what I did in New Zealand and Australia primarily. So again, completely different to ecology.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah. But so he basically had to. I mean, he was great that although it was quite difficult for him, he always found a bit more money to keep me going. So it was. I had contracts then that were very short term, just because he wasn't actually really prepared to have a full postdoc, because a postdoc is then really expensive, and even if you are a very successful professor, you can't easily fund a postdoc.
It's a lot more money
so you
than a
always
PhD.
have to kind of have a dedicated research project that someone can work on. And I mean, I came out of the blue. I was there with this scholarship, and while I had this scholarship, which was 6 months, I was fine. But I think afterwards he said, okay, you could try this, apply for this money. I have talked with this person. We can fund you for this. And it was really, after this time, I was so stressed that I thought, okay, I will basically do anything. So I had, in the end, I think 3 applications around at the same time. One was with a school where I would have become a school teacher, so like mathematics or physics or something like that, at a comprehensive school somewhere in that area. Then I applied for a maths job in industry, so at Bayer. Okay. And John Moore's.
Wow, so just like teacher, industry.
Yeah. And I can tell you, if I wouldn't have got the job in John Moore's, I would have said, okay, that's it. I had applied for many lecture jobs before, and it was really difficult over many years. And I thought, okay, if I don't get a job, I can't really do this anymore. I have a child that is now at school age, and we were getting, so our son was now like 6 and our daughter was born, so we actually just wanted to stay somewhere and live for a few years permanently
for them, so they can
they can settle.
That was also the main motivation that we said after in Australia my contract ran out. We didn't really look for new jobs anymore. We said, okay, let's go back to Europe, because that's where we can be a bit surer that we can stay there for
Germany's
longer
only
term.
a short flight away, so
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
it's, my wife Tamara comes from Romania, so it's much easier to organize all the visits. So, so we usually go to Germany, Romania in summer, and then it's a lot easier to do from England than from Australia or New
Yeah,
Zealand.
it makes sense.
Such a diverse path.
It is,
from
it's mad.
Germany to New Zealand, Australia, back to Germany, over to Liverpool.
I mean, yeah, as a postdoc, I think that's, I would say, one of the great things. So you can,
Just
if you
go
want
about.
to go somewhere, you just look for a kind of suitable position. And if you are kind of working in the right area, you have probably relatively good chances for that job.
Yeah.
So instead of...
It's quite sick, that, to be fair.
Yeah. Instead of,
You never think of it like that.
I went to Israel when I was a PhD student, and I really enjoyed that and would have liked to go there. And I applied there as well. And I probably would have got a job, but it would have been a bit harder because I would have had to apply for funding myself. And then I told the person I applied there, okay, I'll take the position in New Zealand just because it's there. And no hard feelings. I would have really liked to come, but yeah. So I think if you want to go somewhere and you know someone who works kind of in a related area, it's probably possible.
Relatively good chance you
Yeah.
can go and see other things.
Yeah.
Right, so how long have you been at John Moores then now, lecturing?
No, since 2017, so 6 years.
So, with all that time, you
Yeah.
must have some good stories, good and bad, about lecturing. So
Yeah.
give us a few of your good and bad stories then about lecturing at John Moores.
Ian Jarman's was the don't give a shit story.
Yeah.
He was asking a class if the the
Yeah.
answer, no one put their hands up, and then he said, who doesn't give a shit? And everyone.
Yeah, I think, I mean, during lockdown, you remember that, you studied at the same time.
Yeah.
From one day to the other, you basically had to do everything via video
Zoom and
conference.
online, yeah.
And we tried all kinds of different tools. In the end, everyone settled on Zoom. And I had project students. So I think in hindsight, everyone would probably just say, what I remember about lockdown was that when I taught students, I switched on my camera, I switched on my microphone, and as soon as I showed up, all students switched off their camera and microphones and never wanted to talk to anyone. It was very depressing. No one wanted to talk to you, and you could just give your lecture, and you didn't know if anyone was listening.
actually paying
So
attention.
Say
cold.
things like, hello, are you there? Then some people may a thumbs up or something like that. But it wasn't like that forever. The first few weeks of lockdown, I think, were quite anarchistic. So I had a few project meetings, and I actually have kept this because it went so well. I mean, in the old days when I started lecturing, one problem with final year project meetings was that you had this half an hour slot for every student. But for some student, it was, of course, not really that convenient to come in for just half an hour, and I get that. I mean, I tried to put them in a slot so that it was whatever between lectures or something like that, but some said, no, I want to have a lunch break or something like that. It was really always a bit like, do I want to do this half an hour meeting or not? Do I want to come in just for that or not?
Yeah.
During lockdown, it was really a problem, and if you scheduled a meeting any time of the day, typically the students said, okay, that's good for me, let's do that. What I found really funny, I said that at some point no one switched their cameras on. In the beginning, everything was possible. So my project students, so the more relaxed ones, they actually showed up in a dressing gown or not dressed at all, really. So it was really like, hello, you just got out of bed, fine. So let's crack on.
I did though, like in lockdown, like say I had meetings at like 9:15, and I progressively in those first few weeks got lazier and lazier.
When you first did, you tried. I'll get ready. I'll get a shower. I'll get ready. And in the end, I just had my shorts on and a nice top. And then in the end, I was
going to meetings, and the only thing I'd do was fix my hair. Not that there's much to fix. Well, there's loads to fix, but I mean, like, it's a mess. And I'd brush my teeth, and I'd have literally flip-flops pair of underpants and just a t-shirt, and I put this on so it looked like I was ready.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of finishes a t-shirt off, and I was like,
But I think that
okay.
people got to, I think probably they established a kind of etiquette what you have to do on Zoom and not. And I think you had to at least at some point seem like kind of And I think in the beginning it was much funnier. So
unfortunately, I think we've just run out of time for today. We had loads of questions.
Get to the ending ones though.
Yes, we've got to get to the ending ones because these are what really matter.
These are the questions what matter.
So Sam has his world famous question.
Yes.
Hit it, Sam.
Forget your research.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
All that. This is what's important.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ivo. We've asked everyone this. You're gonna die tomorrow.
Yes.
What is the one thing before you die that you want to know that you currently don't know? It could be something big picture, like do aliens exist? Could be something really personal, like did me dad ever love me? It could be, you can go as personal or as big as you want. What is the one thing before Ivo dies tomorrow that if I tell you before you go to bed forever, for the long one, that you'll go, okay, I feel a bit better about myself going, no.
Yeah, so there is one thing, and I mean, it could be kind of related to research, although I was never really involved in anything around that. So I'm really interested why people do what they do. So in kind of how are people motivated? I mean, all kinds of questions in psychology. So why are we conscious? Why do we have different motives to do things? So some people are more motivated by earning a lot of money. Some people want to lead other people.
We were talking about that the other day, like why do we dance to music?
Yeah. Something like that. So there
what
are many
makes us
things.
Stand
so
up
why
and
do
dance?
we sleep? I think that is a big one as well. No one knows really what.
Because actually, when you think about it
all.
logically, like sleeping for someone like a species which could have been a prey species, why would you sleep? That seems so illogical.
The weird one for me in those type of questions is like, why do we like music?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like, why can I put a song on where for me, completely irrelevant, I don't feel anything, and then I put it on for you, and it brings a tear to your eye, it's like, what's going on there in the mind?
I'll tell you what, though,
what's happening?
That's one of the most interesting ones we've had. That.
So what is the exact question?
The exact question of one of those of all those nets
You're gonna dive
of questions.
You're gonna
what's the
go.
one? Would you say consciousness?
What is consciousness?
Yeah, probably.
What is consciousness and why do we have
Yes.
consciousness?
Yeah.
That's so sick. I've never thought of it.
That's a good one.
I like it. We'll add it to the bottom. We have a leaderboard for them as well.
Yeah, who's got the shittest question?
What was it? No, Jarmo's was the funniest. He was like, "Did my ex-girlfriend sleep with my best mate?"
On your deathbed. And then someone, Molly from the Stupid Genius Pod, said, "What happens after we die?" I said, "That's a bad question right before you die."
Because imagine you're on your deathbed, you're about to die, and they go, "This is it."
Yes, nothing happened.
Panic. You're there dying.
Jeez.
Right, so the last question, what we
Yes.
ask, is because we've now got a playlist which we're going to add all the songs to. Ivo, what is your favourite song of all time?
Oh yeah. So there is one. I mean, actually, again, it's like inviting just 3 parties to a dinner. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There are millions of good pieces of music. So my favorite song of all times is the live version of Jimi Hendrix' Little Wing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You want a Little Wing?
I don't think I've heard it.
So the album version is not as good. So
The
there's
live
some
version
weird
good.
What album's the live version of, or where's it played live?
I think it might be Royal Albert Hall. So it's a short one, 2:30 or something like that.
That's the first live request.
I think it's so good. So this live version is so good that it's on many compilations.
Yeah.
So the album version is nothing like it. So the album version is kind of I mean, there's lots of bells and other things in the background. So the live version is just guitar and very good guitar solo. And weird text. I mean, Jimi Hendrix has really good lyrics.
Yeah.
So I think Jimi Hendrix has fascinating lyrics. And the music
all the
is
fascinating drugs he took. That's
Well,
why.
I tell you what, that's a great tune to add in to the first song to the second playlist.
It is. You
It
must
is.
be onto Little Wing.
If you played it, I might hear it.
It
I'll listen
starts
to it
off
after
with
this.
on the actual record. The one starts off with the meow, like the guitar slides.
I'll have to listen to it after this because that's not ringing a bell.
No, doesn't matter.
I'll listen to it afterwards.
Forget it.
But yeah, so Jimi Hendrix Little Wings live version, first song to go into volume 2
Of the
of
playlist.
the guest playlist.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ivo, for your time.
Yeah, thank
Much
you.
appreciated.
Very much.
I'd have loved to have gone on for. We could have sat here and chatted for another hour.
The ship
Unfortunately,
are
yeah.
kicking us out.
They're kicking us out. But thanks for having us, Ship.
I have to take my son to football.
And
So
that is
that was good.
then we have to stop
I
now.
know, yeah. If you liked it, everyone watching and listening, make sure to like, give us a follow, subscribe, because most of you don't subscribe. If you didn't like it, there's comments, you can tell us there. You can also comment if you did like it, there's also a dislike button. But as we always say, what do we say, Sam?
The bastards.
Yeah, we don't like you horrible people. So that's been it from me and
More
Sam.
vulgar language from me, but never
And
mind.
the empty space in between. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks a
Dr.
lot.
Ivo Siekmann for your time
Thank
and
you
coming
very
on. It's been a
much.
very interesting conversation. And we'll see you in the next one.
Peace out, people.
Peace out.